Hi guys, welcome to Trigonometry Day 3. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to focus on finding missing sides. That's what we've been working up to through Day 1 and Day 2, and now we're here at Day 3. Day 1 we focused on the different types of sides and how to use Desmos. Day 2 we focused on how to determine which type of trig function we should be using. And today we're going to use all that information together. So if you've been pretty lost up until now, that's a great time to maybe pause the video, send me a GoGuardian message, shoot me an email, because you're going to need to know all of those different components from the last two lessons to understand today's. So we're going to get started. The first thing I want to hear from you guys is how'd the homework go? So your homework was to create a mnemonic device based on SOHCAHTOA. S-O-H, so sine, opposite hypotenuse, cosine, adjacent hypotenuse, tangent, opposite, adjacent. What did you create as your mnemonic device? Now, I heard a lot of really creative things throughout the ones I looked at before creating this video. They were awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing some more. Now, those mnemonic devices, while silly, are actually going to be really helpful in terms of learning how to do these problems without having a cheat sheet in front of you. Throughout class, what we're going to do today is we're going to work on 10 different practice problems. The first two, I'm just going to do and show you how to do them. The second two, I'm going to kind of guide you through the process. And then I'm going to continually give you less and less support until the last problems. You're not going to have any resources. I'm just going to say, here's the problem and solve it. And so that's how today's class is going to go. So make sure you're really paying attention to these first two because they're going to set you up for success for the rest of class. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to have for you up here is the question. And then for the first 8 of 10 questions, I'm going to have this little cheat sheet for you up at the top of your page. All right, so up at the top, you see sine of angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. That's that first function. The second function we have is the cosine function, which is the cosine of an angle is equal to the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. And the third trig function we have is the tangent of an angle is equal to the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. I previewed this a little bit for you last lesson, but let me show you 2 times through how this works, and then hopefully you'll catch on a little bit and be able to do these on your own. All right, so what we have here is we have 3 pieces of information. We have an angle, we have a missing side, and we have a known side. And we're going to use each of those pieces of information to solve this. So the angle is pretty easy. We don't need to do anything special there. We just know that that's the angle we're dealing with. We have to figure out what type of side each of these sides are. So we have x, which is opposite of the 40-degree angle. So this is our opposite side. We have 19, which is opposite the right angle, making it our hypotenuse. So then I'm going to look at each of our 3 trig functions, remember my mnemonic device, and ask myself which trig function uses the opposite side and the hypotenuse. Well, when I look at these 3, I see that sine uses the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So that's the one that we're going to use here. So I'm going to just rewrite it to start, but you don't have to do this every time. The sine of the angle equals the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. All right, now what I'm going to do is go ahead and insert all of the values from that problem into this so we can now solve it. So the sine of the angle is 40 degrees, equals the opposite side, which is being represented by x, divided by the hypotenuse, which is being represented by 19. Now, we can do this in 2 separate steps on a calculator, but it's actually a lot easier to first solve this without any decimal form. So what I want to do here is I want to just isolate x. In order to isolate x, I would multiply both sides by 19. That way x is all alone on this side of the equation. And what we have on this side is 19 times the sine of 40 degrees. Now this is something we can plug into Desmos, and it's really important that we are all using the same calculator because some people are going to round differently on different types of calculators. So if you have an iPad and want to use that, they have a great app for Desmos. If you type in Desmos Scientific, same thing on an iPhone. I'm sure Androids have it as well, or you can just use the internet version of it, which is desmos.com/scientific. I'm on my iPad today, so I'm going to use the app. So what I'm going to be calculating on Desmos is 19 times the sine of 40 degrees. So it's always important that you clear your screen, make sure there's no calculations there. And I'm going to just type in 19 times sine of 40 degrees. And that gives me my answer right away, 12.21296458, which is a great answer. And that number actually goes on and on and on, but for today's purposes, we're just going to round our final answer to 1 decimal place to the nearest tenth, making this answer 12.212 and so on, just 12.2. So 12.2 is our value for x. All right, now that we've done one of these, I'm going to do one more all by myself, and then I'm going to have you help me out a little bit. So once again, I have an angle. Got to open the right layer. I have an angle, I have an unknown variable, and I have a known side. So let's figure out what type of sides we're dealing with here. X in this situation is my opposite side. So I'm going to look here which of these functions uses opposite side. I know sine uses opposite side, and I know tangent uses opposite side. And then I'm going to look at 10, and 10 isn't opposite the right angle, so it's not the hypotenuse. It is next to the 31-degree angle, making it the adjacent side. All right, so then that disqualifies sine, disqualifies cosine, but it does work for tangent. So I'm not going to rewrite the equation, it's right there. Tangent of the angle equals opposite side divided by adjacent side. Let's plug in those values right away. The tangent of 31 degrees equals the opposite side of x divided by the adjacent side of 10. All right, so now, like the last one, I'm going to isolate x before doing any calculations. I have to multiply both sides by 10, giving me 10 times the tangent of 31 equals x. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug this into my calculator. 10 times tangent of 31. Clear 10 times tangent of 31. Close parentheses. I get 6.008 and so on, but I'm only rounding to the nearest tenth, so I get 6.0. All right, that is my answer to that problem. That is how long this length is. That's 6.0 units long. Now that I've done 2 by myself, I'm going to have you guys help me out a little bit and answer some questions through this process. So my first question here is, what type of side is x and what type of side is 20? All right, so 20 is an opposite and x is an adjacent side. Now that you know that, which of the 3 trig functions are we going to use when we have the opposite side and the adjacent side in play? Hopefully you said tangent. That's when we use the opposite and adjacent side. And 38 is going to be our angle, so that's what we're going to plug in into the angle of the formula. So the formula becomes the tangent of 38 equals opposite is 20 over x. All right, now this is a little bit different from the other problems we did because x is in the denominator. So this requires just a little bit more, and we did this last week as a review, so let's try to hold on to that and remember, and I'll show you how this works. Now, when x is in the denominator, the first priority is getting it out of the denominator. So the opposite of division, which is represented by that fraction bar, is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by x first. As soon as I do that, x is out of the denominator. Now the equation is x times the tangent of 38 equals 20. So super close to being done, but what I need to now do is get x all by itself. Right now, x is being multiplied by the tangent of 38, and I need to undo that, so x is all by itself. The opposite operation of multiplication is division, so I'm going to divide this side by the tangent of 38 to get x all by itself, and divide this side by the tangent of 38, because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So now I know that x equals 20 divided by the tangent of 38. And that's what I'm going to go and plug into my calculator, 20 divided by the tangent of 38. All right, clear all. 20 divided by the tangent of 38. And you should get 25.5988, we were rounding to the nearest tenth. So what does 25.59883264 become when rounded to the nearest tenth? That's right, it becomes 25.6. And that's going to be our answer. All right, another one that we're going to do just like that with that same amount of support. So first question I have here, I was asking these all week last week, what type of side is X? What type of side is 19? Now it might help to know that 74 is referring to this angle right there. Alrighty, so 19 is an adjacent side, and X is opposite that 90-degree angle, making it the hypotenuse. Which of these three trig functions do we use when we're using the adjacent side and the hypotenuse? We should be using cosine. That uses the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. So now what I want you to do is type into the bar, what should the equation look like when you plug in all of these values? All right, it should look like cosine of 74 equals adjacent, which is 19, divided by x. Once again, x is in the denominator. Just like the last problem we did, what is our first step going to be to getting x out of the denominator? We are going to multiply both sides by x. That gets x out of the denominator, making it x times cosine of 74 equals 19. And then what's the next step we have to do to get x fully isolated, get x all alone on one side? It's currently being multiplied by the cosine of 74. Good, we're going to have to divide both sides by the cosine of 74. Cross that out, we get x equals 19 divided by the cosine of 74. And we're going to jump now to Desmos and do that calculation. 19 divided by cosine of 74. Why don't you go ahead and beat me to it? What do you get? X equals 19 divided by the cosine of 74. Clear all. 19 divided by the cosine of 74. Close parentheses. You should be getting 68.931 and so on. 68.93 makes us not have to round up. It stays as just 68.9. And that's our value for x. All right, guys, we have made it through the first 4 problems. And like I said, each is going to have less and less support. So my first question right off the bat is, should I be using sine, cosine, or tangent for this problem? Look at the types of sides they are, figure out which function I should be using. All right, x is going to be the side opposite our 16-degree angle, and 18 is our hypotenuse, making it a sine function. If 18 is our hypotenuse, it is still helpful to label things. So if you don't have a piece of paper out with you, I do recommend rewriting a lot of these problems. It makes it a lot easier to work with. All right, and now we have our equation, sine of 16 degrees equals our opposite side of x divided by 18. What operation are we going to have to do to isolate x? We are going to have to multiply, specifically multiply by 18 to get x all by itself. Now, x is not in the denominator in this situation. X is now fully isolated. 18 times the sine of 16 equals x. The only thing that's left to do is to just calculate what is 18 times the sine of 16. So calculate that on Desmos for me and round to the nearest tenth. Now, if you haven't been pressing clear all, that might be helpful because you'll get a totally different number otherwise. So 18 times the sine of 16. And you get 4.961. When you round that to the nearest tenth, what do you get? We actually get 5.0 because that 9 rounds up, and that makes the 4 become a 5. So it becomes 5.0 is our value for x. All right. Let's do one just like that. I look at the problem, identify which function I'm going to be using, sine, cosine, or tangent. So 20 is the hypotenuse, x is the opposite side. So you should have chosen sine. What is the equation going to be when you plug in all the values into it? You should be getting sine of 40 equals x over 20. And then what do we do to isolate x? We need to multiply both sides by 20. 20 times the sine of 40 equals x. Now go over to Desmos.com, round that for me to the nearest tenth. Clear all. 20 times sine of 40, close parentheses. We get 12.855, and so on, rounded to the nearest tenth is 12.9. Alrighty. We have 4 more problems left, and like I said, each problem is going to I'm going to give you less and less support. So here I have given you still that cheat sheet at the top of your screen. I want you to use the cheat sheet, write down the problem, use Desmos, and calculate your final answer, rounded to the nearest tenth. All right, we have x as our opposite side, 6 as our adjacent side, making us have to use tangent. Tangent of 23 equals x over 6. To isolate x, we multiply both sides by 6. X is all by itself now. 6 times tangent of 23 equals x. Calculate that on Desmos. 6 times tangent of 23, we get 2.546 and so on, so that rounds just to 2.5 as our value for x. All right, we're going to do one more with the cheat sheet at the top of the screen, and then we're going to move on to 2 problems that I don't give you any cheat sheet. All right? Looking at this problem, identify the types of sides you have. Identify which trig function uses those sides. Create the formula and solve. Isolate for x. Go ahead. All right. X is the opposite side. 22 is the hypotenuse, making it a sine function. Sine of 43 equals x over 22. We isolate x by multiplying both sides by 22. We get 22 times the sine of 43 equals x. All right, and then we go over to Desmos. 22 times sine of 43, we get 15.003, which just rounds to 15. Okay, guys, now it's time to see how much this really made sense. I'm going to take away the cheat sheet, give you a problem, find x rounded to the nearest tenth. All right, 12 is our, wrong layer. 12 is our hypotenuse. X is our adjacent side. The function that uses the adjacent side and the hypotenuse is cosine. Cosine of 54 degrees. equals the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. To isolate x, we multiply both sides by 12. We get 12 times cosine of 54 equals x. We go over to Desmos to calculate that. 12 times cosine of 54. We get 7.053, which rounds up to 7.1. And the last one we have for the day. You've made it so far. What is the value of x rounded to the nearest tenth? All right, 17 is, sorry, not 17, just 7. 7 is our hypotenuse. X is our adjacent side. Much like the last problem we did, we have the adjacent side and the hypotenuse, meaning we need to be using cosine. Cosine of 39 degrees equals x over 7. We'll multiply both sides by 7. And then that's what we're going to be plugging into Desmos. 7 times the cosine of 39. 7 times cosine 39 equals 5.4400. Rounded to the nearest tenth is 5.4. All right, guys, we have made it through this set of practice problems. Great job. And I am just going to tell you a little bit more about what's coming up this week, what we have to look forward to, what we'll be learning in math class. So we are now on day 3 of our trigonometry mini unit. There is going to be another day next class, which instead of finding missing sides, we're going to be focusing on finding missing angles. Very similar type of process, but it's going to be focusing on finding the missing angle value instead of finding the missing side lengths value. All right, and then after that, on our not this class, not the class after it, but one more following that, what we're going to do is we're going to try an in-class Kahoot. So make sure whatever time you have class, not next class, but the following class, you get on class about a half hour into the class. So if your class starts at 9:30, we're going to be doing a live Kahoot at 10 o'clock over, I believe we're going to use Google Meet. It might have a couple technical difficulties, but I think it's a fun thing to try. So get excited for that, but it will be requiring you to know trigonometry, so study up for it. It's not going to be graded, but I do think it'll be fun, and it's only more fun if you actually know what's going on. So that's what we have to look forward to. I hope you guys have a great day. I will be on GoGuardian during class. If you need me, I'm always also available via email. If you want to set up an individual Google Meet, just let me know. All right, guys, have a great day.